Okay, good morning. We are in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, chapter 178, Kuf Ayin Ches, Halacha Zayin, Halacha number 7. So what we're discussing at the moment is this requirement, or I should say the leniency, for a person to leave a room, or allowed to leave a room, and come back, bench when he comes back, or bench in the new place where he goes to eat there, because he has to eat there, right? Even though one should not leave the spot they're eating until they finish benching, unless they had in mind at the time of washing that they're going to move, right? But because here he's going for a mitzvah, there's leniency to allowed to leave the room and bench in another location if he's going to eat there. Because if he doesn't eat there, he doesn't bench over there. He has to bench at the place he ate. The fact that he's even leaving his spot and relying on our Gemara's leniency that says the meal's not over because the halacha anchors you back to your place, even though you're not benching in your place, right? Mm-hmm. That leniency is only because you're going to a mitzvah. You're going to a mitzvah, and if you don't get it now, it's going to be gone. The bench with a zimun, or because a chassan and kala are going down the street. You see where we were, right?
So he didn't have in mind that he was going.
If he had in mind that he wouldn't need the leniency, he's allowed to.
Yeah.
That he was going to bench, at least according to this opinion. We'll see other opinions. But at least according to this opinion, if he had in mind when you wash, he's going to be going to another place, then to begin with, he doesn't need the leniency. Here, he doesn't have in mind. So he's relying on our Gemara's leniency that says that because you have to come back to your spot to bench, your meal is not over, even though you're not going to be benching in the spot that you ate. You're going to be benching in the new spot you're eating, not in the original spot you're eating. Right? Remember we had this with the two converging halachas. On the one hand, you're not allowed to leave your spot until you bench. On the other hand, if you did, you're still anchored to your meal. No, you don't have to come back. You don't need to make a new bracha at the place you go to because you're still anchored to your meal.
Oh, anchored meaning you don't have to make.
That's right. You don't. Right. And therefore you could bench in the new place. And that's only because you actually weren't supposed to leave, which is a kind of funny thing. Because you weren't supposed to leave your spot, because the halacha says, hey, your meal's not over. Therefore, when you move, your meal's not over, and you don't have to make a new bracha, and you bench in the new spot. Now you shouldn't have relied on that, unless it was a mitzvah. That's where we are. Sorry?
The outcome is the same. Just
whether you're allowed to or not. If I'm sitting at my spot.
In both cases, it's permitted.
Not permitted. Well, in one case, in the mitzvah case, it's permitted. If it's say again.
Not liable.
No, it's not liable. No one's going to come hound you down. But where you're allowed to. I'm sitting at my spot. I was not expecting to leave my spot. My friend is outside, wants to chat with me. He wants me to come to his house. I have to bench before I go. That's right. Or my friend comes over and says, hey, if you come next door, we'll do a zimun. So I go to his house, eat Hamotzi, and make a zimun there. At least according to this opinion. And that's allowed. Because it's a mitzvah that I'm going to lose out on if I don't go there. So I have to eat something there in order to bench there. But that way I'm getting the mitzvah when I leave. And then I'm allowed to. At least according to this opinion. Right? Because the Alter mentioned there's two opinions. One opinion which says the reason why you're not allowed to leave your spot, in general, you're not allowed to leave your spot until you bench is because you might forget. In the case of a mitzvah, we forgo that forgetfulness. We forgo the concern we might forget.
So these are rabbinic.
That's right. It's all rabbinic. That's right. Now, there's another opinion which says, no, it's an absolute prohibition to leave your spot.
And so it's
right?
It's Torah prohibition,
Not
you're saying.
a Torah, but it's a prohibition, not because you might forget, but just a straight out prohibition. And according to their opinion, you shouldn't be lenient, and you should not leave your spot, even if it's a mitzvah that you're about to miss out on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, if you didn't have in mind at the beginning that he's going to leave.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens if he gets up and goes to something that's of a private nature? Not for mitzvah, just for personal matters. Whatever.
No, it has to be.
Let's see. Let's see. Halacha Zayin. So we'll start reading. I don't know how far we'll get because I have to go downstairs for the candlelight distribution by 9 o'clock. People are starting to come pick up their stuff. Okay, Zayin. Person got up and went for personal concern. Even if he spent a lot of time in that other location. Right? So he wasn't supposed to get up. But because the halacha says you're supposed to go back, even though he doesn't go back, he's still anchored to his original meal and doesn't make a new bracha and benches in a new spot, even though he shouldn't have done that, right? That's what we learned. So now, how long is he allowed to spend there to consider it that he's still connected to his original meal and therefore no new bracha and he can bench there? He says, Kol shaloisha kadeshi yisakal wasn't shemev, so long as he hasn't been there long enough for the food to completely digest. But you look in footnote 26, as explained in section 184.3, when a person eats to a point of satiation, this period extends until he feels hungry again. If he eats a lesser amount, a limit of 1 hour and 12 minutes is specified. So 72 minutes.
That's the leniency, right?
So what's the amount of time it takes for your body to digest food halachically? So if you ate completely full, then you got to wait till you're hungry.
Less than that.
Less than that in 72 minutes. Over here, it's actually, the longer it is, the more lenient it is. Because what we're talking about here is the person left. He wasn't supposed to. But because he left, he's still anchored to his original place and doesn't need to make a new bracha Hamotzi in a new place, right?
Right.
But how long time-lapse wise? Remember that we had this whole issue of time-lapse by Kiddush also. There's the continuity in space, you're in the same place, and then there's the continuity in time. How much time elapsed between your Kiddush and your eating? Here too, how much time elapsed from when I walked out of the room where I was eating to the time I'm eating the bread in the next room? Following? I'm eating my meal here.
I thought the time frame was not from when between the time.
No, from when I walked out. When I walked out. Because when I walked out.
So you start the clock from the first eating in the first room.
From when you walk out of the first room.
From when you walk out.
That's right.
Because
that's when you ostensibly ended your meal, but not really.
Right, because that's the continuation of that.
Correct.
That's the anchoring.
Correct. That's right.
Right.
So long as he hasn't been out of the room long enough that his food should digest, he doesn't have to make another bracha Hamotzi when he goes to eat in the other spot, or when he comes back to his spot to eat, or eating in the other place. Here's a key. So long as he did not divert his attention from it, meaning in his mind, he still was going to eat. Right?
Oh, okay. So we're talking about a case where he hasn't started eating in the other place.
Correct.
Yet.
But he knows he's going to. But he knows he's going to.
Knows he's going.
The reason why I'm going to the other room is because I want to eat something there.
Right.
The food hasn't been served to me yet. And it takes 65 minutes till it gets to me.
Okay.
No new bracha Hamotzi because I'm still anchored to the whole meal.
Because it's still within the
Because it's still within the time. That's right. And 90 minutes later, the food comes out, new Hamotzi. But what if I left and I had no intention of eating in the other place? But then they served me something. I'm like, yeah, this looks good. It's 10 minutes after I walked out, 5 minutes after I walked out. But I had no intention of eating. So then, says Alter Rebbe, following? There's three factors. Three factors. New location, time lapse, and do I plan on eating there? You have to have all three in order for the Hamotzi to extend.
I need all three.
Correct. So new location, you weren't supposed to. Fine, you did that. No, sorry. You have to have the other two in order for the new location to be considered an extension of the other place. You have to have A, you intend on eating there. You weren't planning on stopping your meal. B, it's within the time frame of
72 minutes.
That's right. If either of those two, if it's over the 72 minutes, or I wasn't intending eating and someone brings me something like, hey, that looks good. In either of those cases, I make a new Hamotzi in the new place. Or a new Hamotzi when I come back. Following? Okay, so that she says, but if he completely diverted his attention from eating anymore, he was not intended. But someone brings him a sandwich and now he wants to eat. Because A, he diverted his attention from eating. B, there's a new place. So he has to go back and make a Hamotzi again. As will be explained in the next chapter, in chapter 179, where there it discusses the halacha of someone who intends to end his meal and is therefore required to end his meal. And at what point of deciding to end your meal do we say, yes, your meal is over, you have to bench? Or make Hamotzi again, should you decide to continue eating?
Almost like you said, it's a kiddush. And the person didn't have any make kiddush in the new place. He's bound by a more stricter time frame.
That's right. Yes. Well, okay. Over there is yes. That's true. Over there also, yeah. But here it's a question of the whether the time frame was based on intention and situation. Here the time frame is based on is the food still in me. Right. So it's a bit different.
Yeah, it's different. It's obviously
yeah. Okay. One more halacha.
Trying to see the rationale behind.
The rationale is am I still anchored to my? Okay. Sorry. It's simple. If the leniency to not make a new hamotzi in a new place is because I'm still anchored to my old meal. I'm only anchored to my old meal. A, if I plan on continuing to eat. B, I did not spend that much time that my food is digested.
Yeah.
Right. If either of those things happened, I decided I'm done eating and left the room. Fine, you're done eating, left the room. No, you have to make a new hamotzi should you want to eat again. And if you disconnected yourself, that's right. Correct. But what if I intended on eating, but now my food digested? Again, I'm disconnected.
Yeah,
there's a new location.
Two factors that can disconnect you.
That's right.
One is your intent.
Really, the moving location disconnects you. But the halacha is still tethering you because ostensibly you're supposed to come back to bench. Right. But then when you do something else, which means you decide to stop eating, plus the food that the food digested, now you're completely cut off from the old meal, and you have to make a hamotzi again in a new place.
There's some second chances built in here.
Exactly. That's right.
They're not that.
That's right. Okay, the next paragraph, this is very important. You got to go back and wash your hands again. Not just new hamotzi, you have to wash your hands again. Even if there's no time lapse at all. Because you decided to stop eating and you left the room, we can safely assume because you decided to stop eating, we can assume that you stop guarding your hands from touching something you shouldn't have. You scratched your head, you did something that requires you to wash again. So long as you're eating, we know you're making sure your hands are clean. But if you left the room and you weren't intending on eating anymore, even though it's only 10 seconds later, we have nothing to rely on that you were guarding your hands, and therefore you got to wash again. Even though it was only 2 minutes later. But you left the room, your intention was to stop eating, so you're not guarding your hands from touching anything that it might not touch.
This actually happened to me yesterday.
And therefore you have to wash again.
It happened to me yesterday.
Yeah.
I got up to leave the meal and then getting ready to bench, and I decided to eat something more.
There you go.
I didn't wash. Should have washed it.
Oh, so it depends. Did you leave the room?
Went from the backyard back into the kitchen. Yes.
And
I was going to bench, but then I said, I'm so hungry. I'll eat some more.
So that would be a case. You have to wash and eat. That's correct. Yes. That would be a case. You have to wash and do a bracha again. That's right. Unless
I haven't said I'm going to go do.
No. You probably should wash. You actually verbalized it. So that for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
That's right.
But I think even if I didn't, and I
you would have. That's correct.
I was finished.
That's correct. That's right. Okay, so more on that, God willing, on Monday as we get back into our learning with Hashem Sel. Wonderful day and a good Shabbos.